Good evening. It's Monday, March 18th, Finance Committee meeting. Tonight we're going to review and discuss the FY25 budget and the articles. We have the treasurer's cash report, and we'll have member update, public input, minutes, and then we'll discuss our next meeting. With that, we have Ryan Ferrara here, our assistant town administrator, and we can go over the articles that the selectmen put on the warrant at their last meeting and some that they will be putting on the warrant at the next meeting.
Okay, so before you, with Steve's help, we have the list of warrant articles as they currently stand. So the yellow ones that are highlighted here are new after the 3/11 select board meeting, and the blue articles are going to have to also be added. So both blue and yellow. At this point, they've kind of melded into the same thing, items that we're going to have to introduce. The board has otherwise sort of accepted many of our, we just started going over the articles for annual town meeting. So most everything else has been accepted, but not yet voted on by the board. So just kind of the natural part of the process where we're introducing things, getting on the list and going from there. So so just to go through it, first thing is annual reports of all town committees. Typically, that's when the finance committee provides their update. Usually we keep the finance committee update right at the beginning of the document, so it'll be something that you guys will be working on and that'll go in the front. I will say, I think as I understand from the Nagog Hill Orchard Working Group, they're going to want to provide an update as well as part of the report, but all essentially town committees and boards have the right to report at that time. Bills of prior years, there will be an item in here. We received a bill late from KP Law, one of our attorneys. So we typically, when things come to my office, process them right away. And this they just missed. So we had a little bit of a back and forth, and reminder to the attorney who represents us as well as the staff person to make sure that this doesn't happen again, because generally speaking, I don't like putting on bills of prior years on town meetings, but we have no other choice. This also requires a 4/5 vote of town meeting, actually, so something else we have to keep in mind. So typically we put this on what's called the consent agenda, which is when we sort of all agree on certain things, and hopefully that'll be a unanimous vote, one of those things, but fingers crossed that will be the case. So,
how many law firms does the town work with?
So two main law firms. So it's KP handles our HR and labor related items.
Okay. Yep.
Then it is now Harrington Heap. They have a new name. It handles most everything else, and we do have some other specialty items like Coppola, and Coppola works on our anything as it relates to us.
Tax title.
What's that?
Tax title.
Tax title. Thank you. Yes, tax title. So specialty groups.
Just curious. Thank you.
But yeah, Harrington Heap does the lion's share of the work. So.
And this will be the first town meeting where we have the clickers.
This will be the first time reading of that. We're trying to. So what will probably happen with that, Brian? Thank you for bringing that up. We're going to try to do a dry run. We may bring some members of the finance committee into that to test that out. So we'll also probably have LCTV film that, and they'll sort of boil that down to some hopefully five-minute overview, so people attending will know how it works. But having worked with it as a member of Arlington Representative Town Meeting and this process, it's very simple. It's like, A is yes, B is no. It's really, I think people will get right into it. It shouldn't be that complex in terms of what they're used to. So
with our town meeting history, I could easily see a 30-minute discussion of why should B mean yes,
Yeah, that's maybe. And the thing about it, I will tell you, Brian, after seeing my share, we do okay here, so I don't want to curse anything.
Yeah.
So that's fine. Next item up is item number 3, which is our fiscal year 25 operating budget. You have as a separate handout where we are as of today, I think 11:30. So, which is good at $56,167. So a few other updates and things that Steve came by the office today that we went through. Feel pretty good about that figure. We're still getting other updates in from liability insurance. I don't think that figure is going to change based upon that update. So it was liability insurance and I think also, there was another insurance item in, but it isn't changing that materially from the number we have in the budget. So probably won't see any more adjustments on that. So Steve, I don't know if you want to speak to this.
Well, this includes everything we went through up to last meeting. We did those final cuts, plus the adjustment for health insurance that we talked about, and taking off some of the revenues that we estimated
But
that
there
were
are,
high.
there are no updated figures for the orchard, right?
Not in here,
Nothing.
right? Yeah.
Nothing there, no.
Yeah.
And were there still contract negotiations going on too,
There
or?
are still contract negotiations. I think item, let me see, where do we have it here? We have a placeholder for the settlement for negotiations, which I'm trying to find where that is. It's in the latter portion here. So,
Number 28.
thank you, Steve. So there is money in the operating budget to address that, but not within the specific departmental budgets, because otherwise then, okay, well, we know. the
So
town
it's an
set aside X
anticipated
amount.
number, though, it
Right,
still
we're
could be,
anticipating,
okay,
right, we've got,
okay.
a targeted within that, but there'll be separate votes here depending on which unions we're able to reach final negotiation settlements with. There's 4 unions that we're looking to, continuing to work with.
So the only
That front.
change to the operating budget number right there in the middle of the page would be if we're adding the town hall salary increase in, because that's not in that number right
And it's
now.
not on the number.
So we
Okay.
need to up that.
Gotcha, okay. All right. So, again, that's where we are today. So, that's, again, my thanks to Steve and the whole finance team for getting us here, but this is reflective of what we talked about at our last meeting, and the update on, the big item being the update on healthcare, and the health insurance number, and being able to back off some of our assumptions regarding revenue. So that's where we are there. Number 4, anybody other questions on the operating budget right now? Okay. Number 4 is departmental revolving funds. This is an annual piece where we, for the revolving funds, we provide spending caps for each revolving fund. You might remember at the fall town meeting, we had to come back on the Parks and Recreation revolving fund and increase that from 1.1 million to 1.3 million. So we have questions already out to each of the respective departments saying, okay, do we need to change this? And also asking accounting to take a look at it to see, or to ensure that we have a number that's high enough that everyone can operate under. So it's really more of a ceiling for all those groups, so you know how to.
Well, let me just jump in here and remind everybody, if anybody has any questions on this stuff, we're meeting jointly with the select board on Monday. So I would think at that meeting, they're going to be voting some of these articles, yes or no. We should be prepared to vote also. So if people have issues with some article, let's get it out here now. So we're kind of all in agreement when we go to the select board meeting. Okay.
Monday, the 25th, a week from today?
25th, yes.
Okay.
So next item up is an amendment to the FY24 Water Enterprise Fund operating budget. Essentially, the bottom line for the water budget isn't changing in FY24. They're just basically taking they're allocating $1.9 million specifically for a water line replacement that's happening in tandem with the sewer project. So it's specifically allocating some of the capital funds to that specific project. Just with the sewer project, as they have the holes open in the streets, they are then finding an opportunity to then replace the water lines while they already have that open. So it's it's an efficient way for them to approach it, and they're specifically asking for that use at this point. So that's the requested alteration to the FY24 water enterprise budget. Next item, this is a request from the LALWD, that would be to establish a water capital stabilization fund so that they can basically essentially make transfers or request transfers from the stabilization fund to for capital needs moving forward. So I don't know, this is a request that they had worked with town council on, and seemingly to create it, they still need to come to the finance committee to withdraw money from it, but this allows them to take their, what I'm assuming is.
Well, Finance Committee and Town Meeting.
Town meeting.
Correct,
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
yes.
Still 2/3, yes.
Yes, to get to, thank you, yes, to take any money out of that. So that's a new item, and that's, which again, I think probably makes some sense for them. I wouldn't be surprised at some point in the future we're looking to establish something on the sewer side as well, but that's a few years down the line. The next is to establish an opioid settlement stabilization fund. As some of you may have been reading, there have been a number of settlements against various companies that have essentially been promoting and producing opioids. And so with the settlements, each town within the Commonwealth is getting a certain allocation of funding for that. Now, there are limitations as to how those funds can be used, but right now, DOR doesn't have an easy way to set this aside into a special account. So the idea of this is to take the money that we've received to date, putting it aside in a stabilization account, and then make a determination at a later town meeting as to how we want to allocate those funds. Typically, it has to be related to something that is to remediate the opioid crisis, and determination about how we do that. So we're really leaning on the Board of Health to give us some guidance on that, but in the interim, we want to set those monies aside and make sure that that's accounted for.
Any
How to
ballpark on that?
decrease opioids and increase marijuana so we get more sales tax out of the marijuana store, right?
So in Robin's email that she sent around, it's just under $100,000 that we received.
Okay, so there must have been another 40,000 or so, or I
Came in.
think it's 60,000.
Any idea how much? I mean, is this it? Or
That's,
is- or is
yeah,
there
well,
more coming,
and I'm not
or-
sure if there are other settlements that are going on, Fred. All we can do is take in, what we've
Okay,
received
so
today.
at this point, all we know about is this 99,000 or whatever it is.
Right, right.
So do we have to put all of this all at once into a stabilization account, or can we spread it?
We
Because
might be able to
to-
spread it,
to-
yeah.
do that,
I know what you said.
we'd
yeah.
have to come out of free
I know,
cash.
yeah, no, right, because the issue we have is that it's coming in, and then, it's gonna take 2 years to clear through to free cash, but right now, it's in. It's very awkward the way that the state set this up, that they didn't put any sort of setup for you to easily put this in, because we can't be the only municipality
Yeah.
that has the same issue, because even if we want to spend it, they didn't set up an easy vehicle via the regulations for us to do it. So well, I guess we're going to have to back into it and figure out, and I don't necessarily think we're compelled to have to put the whole amount in. I would imagine too, whatever program we come up with is going to be multi-year.
Could the article be written such that when payments come in, they automatically go to that stabilization fund?
I think that would be the hope.
So we don't have
It's
to
just-
go through
Yeah.
pulling it out of free cash
I
and
think-
somehow looping it back to
I
free
think
cash?
that's what our goal would be, but at this point, now we're close to, 100,000 that we've received so far, and, have to give it at least some home. So
And then it would sit in that stabilization fund until we figure out what we can
what we can
spend
do
it
with
on.
it, right. So I would really be counting on, we have a new director of public health and Board of Health that hopefully would, be working with some other communities and figuring out how to best allocate those.
Can we pay for the health agent with it?
I don't think so, no, because it's specifically related to
Opioids?
mitigating the opioid crisis. And, so if someone's going out and doing
Okay.
food inspections, they're probably not going to be, it's not opioid related, so, and safety thing. So, but I like the thinking though, friend, that's good.
Where is the guidance found on how the money can be spent?
If I think it should be on the State Department of Public Health website, and just so everybody is aware too. One of the things that's coming out too is that I saw there was a story in the Globe not too long ago, actually based on a community that I used to work in Middleton, and the person was saying, well, town, you've got these monies, but you haven't done anything with it. Well, just as we haven't done anything with it as well. So clearly, the idea is that like the Neshoba Boards of Health, the state, everyone is being supportive of us wanting to spend the money. It's just not necessarily anything that, quickly comes to mind to say, okay, we've got a treatment center here in town. Well, no, it probably has to be something more regional, and we just have to be thoughtful about how we do it so that we can still abide by what the rules are and really focus on,
Well,
having-
$100,000 is not going to go very far, number one.
right.
And to me, I would look at this the way we try to look at one-time funds. If it's a one-time program, or because if you start an ongoing program, it
So-
then becomes.
Yeah,
So-
or an expectation.
Yeah.
Right, so probably what would happen, it wouldn't be like an in-town program per se, at least as I think of it. It'd probably be something more regional, or, I can't speak for how the Board of Health would do it, but I don't
It
necessarily.
just smells like something, spend it now, and then, oops, a bill comes in next year, and a bigger bill
Right,
comes in the year after, and a bigger bill comes in the year after.
Potentially,
So
it
I
could be
think we
used
need to really
for
be
things like
careful.
training people
Yeah.
in how to
Could
deal
be.
with that, or
Could be,
treatment, that kind of thing.
Well, Fred, this is by our policy that one-time money gets spent on one-time expenses.
Right, then we should buy $100,000 worth of Narcan and pass it out. Or pay the families whose Littleton residents died from Purdue Pharma's greed and negligence. Can we do that? Can we give it to a family who has lost someone
Yeah,
to?
I think, I don't know if the guidance we could provide those sort of gifts, but I
Yeah.
think it's more toward, I think the focus is more on prevention
Right.
moving forward. So I don't want to speak to
Yeah, yeah.
specifically, and if you're interested, John, I definitely would recommend to go check online in the
Yeah.
state
It's
Department of Health.
really a shame that Purdue Pharma is not coming up with a way to fix their own mistakes, and now communities need to come up with regional,
And that's-
anti-opioid
Yeah.
fairs. It's
I
just-
wouldn't trust their solution.
No, I don't think so either, but I recently heard about people going to concerts and handing out Narcan just for free, and, like these multi-day concerts, and
Sure, yeah.
having people come back the next day and say, hey, I used it last night and saved someone's life. So, I mean, that to me feels like a good way to
And
spend
that's
that
the
kind of
sort
money.
of theme, we're talking about. What's weird is that it is coming through the towns, and, and it really is, and part of the reason for that situation, say in Middleton, and a lot of the communities who haven't spent this, is like, well, okay, we have it, but there
Right.
isn't necessarily, especially talking about, the opioid crisis is everywhere, but our capacity to address this crisis is, it's a little hard for municipalities to
Yeah.
figure out. So it needs more of a regional and broader perspective as to how to appropriately allocate those funds to,
Right.
to maximize its
Right.
value. So,
Yeah, it's weird. It's a weird thing.
Okay. All right, number 8 is Water Enterprise Operating Budget Standard Item. It's actually, that has been submitted, so that includes our debt service, et cetera, in there as well. Number 9 is an authorization to utilize the sewer betterment revenue. So that back in, I think, was it September, Steve, when we sent out our betterment letters?
Mhm.
So that, we started to receive back revenue from the parties who, or the residents who are joining the sewer system, as well as the commercial entities. So we're taking some of those monies and applying it against our sewer debt for this year. So this is, I think we just picked 200,000, sort of as a starting point on that front. So and that's included in the sewer operating budget as a revenue line item. So, okay. Next one is part of the FY24 state budget. The Commonwealth is now allowing municipalities to utilize what they call the prudent investor rule for town trust funds. So this idea kind of came to me because I'm like Steve and Fred. I am a member of the town trust fund where I live in the town of Arlington, and so they were putting forward an article for this because basically there's now more flexibility in terms of where you can invest town trust funds. Prior, there was a limitation about that. I think it was, what do they call it, the standard?
State legal list.
The state legal list, which is a sort of one way to say, like, the most conservative items that you can put in other than sticking money under your mattress. So it's fine, but we think that, I think that most municipalities are trying to take advantage of this and allowing us to invest in, other conservative vehicles, but maybe a little bit more conservative than
More flexibility, yep.
in the flexibility, than the state legal list. So, okay. Number 11 is the FY25 sewer enterprise operating budget, and this is, we are the only customer of the sewer budget right now. So, so as the current user, all those expenses fall to us. So. One of the things that you'll see is, we're starting to incur the debt associated with the sewer project. So there's a little bit of a bridge here that we're going to be, as the primary and almost exclusive user here at this point, that, some of those costs really, before the flow starts coming, and then we can start, billing out our customers from there. But in the interim, this 2-year construction window. We're now at about 1.5 years left in this. This is something that's going to continue to be something we need to be aware of, and because those costs again will have to be borne by the town.
And this FY25 is an easy year, if you want to use the word easy for this. In '26, Clean Water Trust bonds the big piece of that project, 26 million or 28 million. And we have to stop paying the debt service on that in '26. So it jumps up pretty drastically.
What will that number be, or estimate?
It's well over $1 million, $1.5 million, $1.7 million, somewhere in that range. I don't know offhand.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's what I was looking for.
So
But
in
it's-
in an
it's
FY,
big.
yeah, in an FY26, our sewer system isn't going to be up and running, so we are serving to some extent as a bit of a bank to help float those expenses. So I just want to put that out for everybody. We've talked a little bit about the challenges of what the upcoming years are going to look like
So
as well.
this year's sewer for the town, what we're paying the sewer department is I just looked at it today, 698,000. Their budget is 898,000 because they have the betterment piece that they're doing.
They're using as the offset.
So 700,000 for this year for us is,
Right,
So we
plus
were-
the betterments we
we were
pay.
very lucky with that $825,000 betterment
Betterments,
charge
yeah.
using the ARPA money.
Mhm.
That was big.
Yeah, yes, no doubt, no doubt. So, but it's just to keep everybody in mind about still, still things we need to address on the horizon with that. Number 12 is our trust fund transfers. So 2 specific items, which is $40,000 for the Russell Street Elementary School Relaxation and Mindfulness Room. I think this was a grant that came in, I think, and then $4,000 from the Elder and Human Services Animal Care Assistance Program. So yes, that's, so.
So there are several trust funds for the funds. Four of the funds are dedicated to school projects. So each year we reach out to the school department, and this year they came back with this mindfulness room at Russell Street to help with the special needs children at the school.
At the school, right, okay. Number 13 is still in blue. We're still trying to get some numbers on this. Basically, these are funds that were part of the agreements when we established Grimes Lane, and I think they were basically expenses that the developer put toward affordable housing. So right now it's a matter of taking those funds and then determining where they should go. I think talking with Steve, our recommendation would be that it would go to one of CPC's funding buckets is affordable housing. So it would be a logical place to do that, and the monies that we put in there, then we also have a chance of a state match under that as well. So we probably have to change or alter the CPC budget as well to know that that's part of the revenue, let them know that's coming their direction, but we need to know what the balances are in those funds so that we can proceed forward.
So let's discuss this one as a group first. The option is to either give it straight to the Affordable Housing Trust or flow it through CPC and let them be the gatekeeper. When we talked today, my recommendation was give it to CPC, and then at least the town can control the money. As soon as it goes to the Affordable Housing Trust, we lose all control. They're sitting on $1 million now, and who knows what they're gonna do. Until they come up with a budget that we can see, why give them any more money?
Well, we also committed to trying to fund them enough to be able to maximize the match, right? So this would qualify as blended funds if we do it that way?
It might, it's a deposit into the
Yeah,
fund, sure,
okay.
sure.
And that's the intention.
Okay.
Basically, then you get a little boost off of it.
So then I
But-
think, and I think,
And I think at the
Yeah.
end, it's all gonna end up with the Affordable Housing
Right,
Trust
right.
anyway. It's just a question of what they use. So if it's, if it's $1,030,000 that they get into it, it's still there, it's still available.
So CPC, then you're on the committee, so I know you have a meeting coming up,
yes.
is for the past couple of years, the way they operate it is whatever goes into that Affordable Housing Trust bucket, they've been giving to the Affordable Housing Trust. And I think when we had our joint meeting with the select board way back when, in November, we kind of decided to shut that off and keep it at CPC level until we saw what they were going to use it for.
Yep.
Is everybody
Yep,
in agreement with that?
That makes sense.
that's my recollection, and it also seems like the right thing to do.
Right.
Do we know what this
And
number
the
is?
authority sits with CPC
And town meeting.
and town meeting, okay, all right. So the Affordable Housing Trust, if they have been given the money, they can just,
Do
with their
whatever
own
they want.
discretion, do what they'd
They
like.
have nothing
Okay.
to do with the town, it's,
And as of this moment, the $1 million is in the Affordable Trust
yes.
Housing
Bucket.
bucket.
Yeah.
So
It's in their
there's
bank
no,
account.
$1 million is in,
Their
with the
hands.
Affordable Housing
Yeah.
Trust.
with the trust, okay.
With the trust.
Okay, so there's no
The bucket with
directing
CPC
it
is
back
zero.
to CPC?
No.
No.
Okay, got it. All right.
The interest obviously was a piece that they were, wanting to know how that was going to work, because they obviously know they're going to miss out on that interest by not having it in their, in their account versus staying in CPC, so.
Well, I saw on the agenda, I think it's Thursday night meeting,
Wednesday,
Wednesday, is
Yeah.
it? The Affordable Housing Trust is coming in
Yeah.
to quote, memorialize how this all works. So it's, that may be in concert with what you're saying and what the understanding coming out of the select board and finance committee meeting was, or it may be something totally different. And
Well, I mean,
well,
you
Carolyn
know
did
where we
ask
have
them, for a.
standing on this, so.
Yeah, Yeah.
So I don't know whether, you've seen the documents?
I have
and
not
what-
seen them
okay,
yet,
so
no.
nobody's, okay. All right.
Yeah, so further question would be, are they memorializing, yes, we just get the money, or yet they're memorializing, hey, we should have a budget before we get any more money?
And we should have a plan to spend the $1 million that we already have.
Yeah.
Right,
They were supposed to be coming with a plan for what they have, but it didn't sound like that it kind of depends on things, if this happens, then this.
Mhm.
But,
But we have the flexibility that with CPC,
Right.
if something does come up in next town meeting.
well,
that's
except, yeah, it has to wait till town meeting, though,
Yeah.
that's the other hiccup.
6 months at the most. Sorry.
And I know, I was just curious, why is there $1 million sitting in an affordable housing trust instead of going toward affordable housing? Why isn't it being
Yes.
used? I mean, I understand you saying, well, they don't want to miss out on the interest they might earn. Why aren't they running at zero because they're giving the money to people who need it? Why is
Because
it
they
just
want to
sitting
be
there?
able to buy a large,
Affordable housing trust.
piece of property or whatever, some of the things come up are expensive, so the same kind of thing,
Oh,
like with
okay.
buying,
Right,
So,
they've got the
open space, they want to
they've got
have
the
a,
Grimes Lane House.
Yeah.
Got it, okay.
Right, and they have this vision of creating affordable housing in there.
Okay.
I have no idea whether that,
they don't
You
yet
can
know
walk
with the,
in that
with the
house
septic,
without
what they're going to
falling
be
down.
able to do,
Okay.
too, so.
So there
yeah,
might be
it's
a
up in the air.
project that could use that money. Got it, okay.
right,
Okay, got it.
that's the theory, but nothing has
And
happened.
in the meantime, if it
Today.
costs more than what they have, it'll be sitting with CPC, and we can always transfer the money.
Sure,
to
yeah.
the-
Yeah, they certainly have plenty to get going on anything that they need to,
Absolutely.
I think, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great,
So we're good on that, everybody?
yep, thank you.
Gary, if you need a hired gun, just call up the-
I'll call you.
She's over there.
If you need a hired gun, you get Fred's number. Okay, item 14 is just basically a summary of all of the items that we're transferring from free cash, which total $1,535,436. I would call out to everybody the last item, which is the cemetery line item. That was a change that we had discussed at, I believe, our last meeting, that originally we were hoping to maybe pay this out of perpetual care, but again, looking at the rules that for them to do the billing study, it didn't really make sense for us to be pulling that out. So if you guys want to take a look through the list, I don't want to have to go through everything, but we've reviewed a lot of this.
It hasn't changed.
Other than the cemetery.
Well, yeah.
But no,
Yeah.
there hasn't been any other changes from that last discussion. With that, item 15, we had a couple other miscellaneous pieces from free cash. This will be a separate article. We discussed $25,000 being set aside for either a grant writer or a consultant to help guide us regarding our grant writing strategy and hopefully getting some things out the door. And then another $45,000 for redoing our classification and compensation study. I think our plan is to do it every 3 years. Believe it or not, it's been 3 years since the last one we did, so to make sure that we're competitive. That's why we would be moving forward with that. So.
Not to split hairs, but you said 25,000 for a grant writer or grant writer consultant
Probably,
fees,
yeah. I
but,
think we have to.
Okay.
Yes, I think, yeah, oh, yeah, oh, no, we're not hiring a grant writer.
Yeah,
No,
okay.
Yeah, no, we need to be more specific on the language, Jerry, you're right with that. So I think we're gonna start with the consultant, because the other part of the consultant is there's a lot of firms out there and doing some research who have expertise in a lot of different areas, so they, we wanna go for the low-hanging fruit, and so, help us identify that with, a community of our demographics and, what makes the most sense, where can we get the most bang for our buck? Whereas if we just go to somebody who's got an expertise in a certain area, I think the hope would be that we would get the kind of guidance that we need to direct ourselves in the, again, where we can get the most benefit from. So, okay. Any other questions on that? Okay, so that brings us to 16. which is to amend Article 10 from the June 12th, 2021 annual town meeting and Article 20 from the May 2nd, 2022 annual town meeting. This is for expanding the definition of design services for the senior center. I think, and basically, and then putting in and construction. So now that we're actually in the construction mode and we're done with the design, we have I think originally that 1,500 kind of left some monies.
It's $1.5 million, there's a zero missing.
Oh, yes, it's $1.5 million. Yes, I read that, yes, $1 million, okay, thank you. So basically by expanding this, it allows us to reallocate the funds that we had set aside for design for construction. So, small thing, but important nonetheless.
So the way, I'm sorry, the way that we're handling, that finance people are handling the senior center debt right now. So we spent money on design of the building so far. And if you remember, we have the stabilization account, $5 million that we transferred in. So we want to use money that we're not having to borrow on first. So we've used the stabilization money. That's why we need to reallocate the design money to constraint and construction. And we borrow that when we need to borrow it, minimize our interest costs.
Does this 1.5 million come out of that 5 million?
No, that's in addition to.
It is.
So it's basically a third of the project.
So there's the $1.5 million authorization, there's a $12 million borrowing authorization for construction, and there was the $5 million stabilization. That's the entire project, those
Yeah.
three
I
things.
think it's 18.5 million is where we're at, yeah.
Just think of it as $1,000 a square foot.
Okay.
Okay. Next up is funding for the rehabilitation of the former Indian Hill Music School. We had, just to give everybody a quick update, we had a walkthrough for contractors who were interested in seeing the site last Thursday at noon. A lot of painting contractors, electrical contractors, GCs. So we are looking forward to getting those bids back in. The ad alternates for the project, the first one is the roof is ad alternate 1, and the second piece that they were able to pull out was they have these, they're not skylights, they're like, I guess.
Light tubes.
Light tubes.
Thank
Yeah.
you, yeah, so they have, I think it's like six light tubes on the second floor that opens up to the hallway. So if the bids come in, this is a separate question and discussion with Finance Committee and the Select Board regarding when that comes in, what we want to do and how we want to handle it. So the idea would be then coming forth with a recommendation to town meeting, saying, okay, here's the base bid, and we hopefully have enough money to do alternate 1, which is the roof, and alternate 2, which would be the solar tubes. So, you know, we've worked hard to keep it lean. I know, Brian, you attended that last meeting, and you know, there's not a lot of fat there.
No, it really seemed like they've done their job of, you know, I looked at things and it's like, there really wasn't anything that I could see to pull out. I mean, there was one thing, but there was like 2 rooms that they were pushing into 1, and then next to it there was 1 room they were putting to 2, and I'm like, couldn't you just swap them? And I realized that's not my area of expertise. But it seemed like I didn't see anything. It's like, oh my God.
Right, and then, you know, and we wanted to give the experts at the PMBC, you know, the chance to look at it and review it with us as well. And, you know, we you know, it's interesting because, you know, we want to be courteous to both the school administration and PMBC as to getting them involved and letting them, you know, offer perspectives, you know, but there are compromises that had to be made. You know, one of the things we talked about was, you know, was the extent, the Parks and Rec was hoping to maybe kind of cut back the stage area so that they'd have more use of it. The problem is that we then take out its real functionality as an ongoing theater. So we still think we're going to be running a number of theater events through that. So it's you know, the idea being multi-purpose. So, you know, again, these are the choices that have to be made along the way, but again, we're trying to make it as affordable and as sensible as we can, so.
Right. At the same time, that area that would be seating for the stage is going to be a basketball court. And so there have to be protections for the windows and stuff. So there's all kinds of trade-offs. But
Yeah.
they seem they have it handled, it looks like.
Yeah, it's a pretty thoughtful design group,
Yeah.
which is nice, because, it's one of these things that you don't always, because it isn't my area of expertise either, Brian, so like, they start pointing things out, like, we should think about this, and anyone who's done renovations in their house, just, when they've had a good partner, and with a designer or a contractor, can see how much it saves you, because the guidance they give you in the beginning help make it so that you don't sit there looking at things later on and say, why didn't I think of that then? I'm glad I spent a little bit more to do this or that, just so that you're ultimately happy with the end result.
And so the 4 million figure, that's placeholder. We don't have
Entirely,
it.
right,
Yeah.
right. So, and what we would be proposing, whatever it would be a transfer from the capital stabilization fund, which would also require, that's a two-thirds vote as well, but would only be based upon what we get feedback from the FINCOM and the select board a month before town meeting as to what they want to include or exclude with the alternates as well, Brian.
Okay, yep.
No.
You're saying the 4 million number will change to what the actual quotes come in?
Correct, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, included too, we also have to probably put in some of the soft costs as it relates to anything that we have, that we also need to add in there for,
IT and,
yes, right, IT door, we had there's actually a door expert that went through everything and made some recommendations. Well, and we have to be careful about that as to having the fob system. There's going to be kids, there's also school administration, which I hate to say in this day and time, you have to be careful because sometimes they become targets, so, we have to be careful about that and provide for the security of the people in the building as well, so. So soft costs, there'll be some of that as well in there, and, design oversight, construction oversight as well.
Do you think the timing will allow us to vote on an actual figure prior to you going to print?
No, I don't think that will happen, that was never, and I don't think that was ever presumed. I think we would, it's, because the amount of time that we need prior, we wouldn't get the bids back in. But we will have a lot of time, so we won't be in, what Brian's critique was, okay, it's a meeting before. No, that won't happen. We'll have hopefully a month beforehand, because that's roughly speaking how good the bids will be for us as to how we proceed. So.
And at that planning board meeting, which was now 2 weeks ago or so, they had said that they could be able to give us a ballpark of what the number would be in about 2 weeks,
Yeah.
which is about now. And they said
well, he
Yeah.
went to the
Right.
select board meeting Monday. Fred and I went to the meeting. This is Vertex, the OPM. And basically, he's basing it on, correct me if I'm wrong, on what the construction piece was estimated for.
Yeah, and the estimated that came out, right?
Right, so that was like 2.6?
It's actually 2.1, I think, right now. So, and those are just for the construction costs at this point. Doesn't include any of the soft costs, is what he's estimating it to be.
So hearing all that, it shouldn't be anywhere near this 4 million, which is good news.
Yes.
It stays in cap stave because we have big projects coming up in the next few years
Right.
with the schools.
Yeah.
Right, well, also, I mean, if it's 4 or less, then I got the sense that our board and select board were like, yeah. If it came in at 5, it would be in deep trouble. So that's encouraging.
Right. And again, until such point it goes out.
Sure,
we'll
sure.
see. So I don't want to make any commitments on
Sure,
that. But
sure.
there are other things too. Like if you remember through Brian, the conversation that people saw, the on the first floor there was the conference space, and some people noted that. Well, that's gone. In the main lobby. So again, I think that It also, I will say, during this process, I give a lot of credit to the schools and Parks and Rec, because their commitment of wanting to get this done and understanding, like, okay, where are the wants and where are the needs?
Absolutely, yeah, no, it's a good feeling.
And Brian Fors, the OPM from Vertex, made a point in saying that the schools and Park and Rec are making an effort to go through their furniture now and taking as much of their existing stuff over there, which is good
Excellent,
news.
yeah, no.
Yeah. Okay, anything else? All right. So next up is the CPC budget. So we anticipate that the certain things it's going to include is about $118,000 for debt service on the tennis court ban, $70,350 for existing debt service on existing CPC projects, and deposit of extra funds by the town of $188,700 to cover the above debt service from RNA. So that's from RNA is from, remind me, that's, the RNA is the acronym for?
Where are we? I'm sorry.
We are on item 18. On the
Oh,
CPC
but
budget.
that was a note for myself. That
Okay.
was, you didn't take that out.
Oh, okay, all right, there you go, all right. Okay, so, and so part of that is speaking to, I think, what we're trying to put some more, depositing, with the 100, remember the 188?
So if you remember back in November, our first joint meeting with the select board, we had CPC in,
Yes.
and we were discussing whether select board at the time wanted to increase the CPA from 1% to 3%. And we basically, as a group, said no, and came up with a way to put extra money into the CPC each year. We couldn't guarantee there was going to be 1% or 2%, but it would be something, and we'd make the effort to do it. And one of the things we came up with the tennis courts, for example, was dividing it in two. CPC takes care of $400,000 of the $730-something thousand cost. We ban the rest, and then CPC pays the ban, but the town gives a deposit into CPC for the amount of the ban each year for the next 3 years. That's the $118,000, and then their existing debt service is another 70, which gets us to the 188. So we're making a deposit into CPC, extra funds of $188,000, and it's coming out of our free cash allocation as basically a project. So they're getting the money, we're not raising the tax rate on people,
And we're getting the match.
and we're getting more of a match.
Yeah, great. As it's supposed to be.
Everybody should be happy.
Yeah. Please note the timestamp.
Should be is the operative word.
Yeah.
And then the two other items are capital items that CPC would like to be sponsoring is money for the resurfacing of the basketball court. I think that might be a little bit more than that, but in that ballpark, $35,000-$40,000. And about $10,000 for historical markers, and I think that they hire someone that they have like a not to exceed $10,000 for going out to the markers and rehabilitating them through the cemetery. We do that. So those are really, I think, the only two items that we're going to be seeing for the CPC this year. So.
Yeah, the amount that,
we referred to them, I think they have some of their own.
yeah, the amount they actually voted on for the markers was $9,990. I don't know if that matters for
Okay.
this.
Okay, just under the 10,000. Okay. I'll make a note. Okay. Number 19 is the Littleton cable television receipts reserve. So it's basically it's their budget. We set aside the regular one, and we also have 48,000 that they're setting aside, also from PEG funds. So that's again normal thing that they're used to.
Sorry, what is PEG?
So public education and government television.
Okay.
So
That's from the state?
No, actually, it's so when we pay our cable
Yeah.
bills, there is a portion of that bill that goes into support the broadcast of this very program that we're on live. So it's, yeah, so that's basically through cable television.
Okay, thank you.
And the deal that the town cuts with our cable providers. So, okay. Number 20 is an update to our compensation grid. This is the non-union compensation grid. So that's, we'll be updating that soon. Next few items are sort of our standard items about deposits into various stabilization funds per our fiscal policies. So the first 21 is capital stabilization fund deposit of about 1.5 million from free cash into the capital stabilization fund. School stabilization fund deposit about 1.2 million from free cash. Number 23 is the use of debt exclusion stabilization
So
fund.
22, let me just back you up for a
Okay.
second. That's a new stabilization account
Okay.
that we're doing specifically for Shaker Lane school buildings. When we were at the selectmen's meeting and they came to this article, Mark asked the question, why doesn't it go straight to our debt exclusion stabilization account? My answer was because we want it separate and dedicated to.
Yes, encumbered.
Exactly.
Yes, yes.
To
It's
these
restricted
school
as to what it
buildings.
can be used for.
So that was my answer to him.
So I noticed that this year, we don't have just one for the general stabilization, or do we?
For general stabilization fund?
No, we don't.
No, yeah, because I think we had already reached the excess per our fiscal policies, and we didn't have to make an additional contribution. relative
Sure.
to that.
I just wondered whether we want to, at some point, mention it proactively so that somebody doesn't say, oh, what's going on?
Maybe something for your report.
Yeah.
Yeah,
To
okay.
talk about that when you give an update.
Same thing with debt exclusion. We're not putting anything into the exclusion stabilization account either. We're taking money out. We're not putting anything in.
Right, but it's good for the report to get people saying, when we said this was going to be a tough year, here's part of the what falls out of it being a tough year.
Okay. So,
We could remind people what we actually have excluded at this point. What projects are excluded that we're paying? There aren't many.
For the debt
Taking money
exclusion,
out of the debt exclusion.
stabilization, to pay
Stabilization.
the debt service on that.
Right.
Right.
So for
We've done
what
a lot with
projects? Right?
We've done a lot. We save probably 17, 18 cents on the tax rate each year because of that account.
Yeah.
So it helps.
so number 23 is actually using the debt exclusion stabilization fund for excluded debt. So it's about $350,000 to offset a portion of our debt. So as Stephen mentioned, we're going to be spending that down, and that's part of how we
Yeah.
offset the
Yeah.
overall budget. Number 24, we receive annually a portion of Uber and Lyft fees. So basically, it's not a lot of money, but we basically get those monies and have to allocate whatever balance we have over to DPW for road maintenance, specifically for road maintenance. It's kind of I would anticipate that this will probably be a consent agenda item.
They can fix one pothole.
Exactly. Like, hey, I'll take every dollar we can get.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
but,
Yeah.
the next few items are items that the select board has asked me to put in as placeholders. So first is that if it is the recommendation of the Nagog Hill Working Group to sell the Nagog Hill Orchard, we would need to, get that authorization from town meeting. I don't know if that's what they're going to do at this point. I'm still waiting to do that, but that we would need to do that. The town meeting has already authorized us to lease the orchard. So that we would not necessarily need any approval from town meeting, but to sell, that would be something we'd need.
So that this doesn't give them carte blanche to sell without going back to town meeting. This is, town meeting say, yes, go investigate selling.
Well, it depends.
They'd have to come back to town
It depends on
meeting.
how the article's written and what they want, you know, so.
Because land sales, it's still 2/3 vote. You want to sell property.
Right,
Or
right.
purchase property, one or the other.
Right, so, I mean, and I think that timeline-wise, they probably be coming back, Steve, but I don't want to presume anything, because I don't know exactly what they want to do. I think they're still trying to form it as well. So right now, it's just in as a placeholder.
Do we know even if they are wanting to sell and theoretically we get some money versus they want to do some refurb and we have to spend some money?
So I think that, so part of it is based upon what they received from, they issued what's called a request for information, and they received 15 responses back on that, so it's a really good number. And it doesn't, and they're not committed to have to go with any of those, because it's just basically people saying, I think I might do A, B, and C with this, and, which is fine. So they are going to take that information and then make determinations from that to say, okay, you know, these handful of them, of responses look viable, and the option would be looking at potentially leasing or potentially selling, or, you know, different uses. We do have ways that, you know, through the request for proposal process, you know, to kind of direct what we want that sale to be, and what that use would be. But don't forget, I can't emphasize this enough, that the property is still under an agricultural preservation restriction, so it will not change. It's still going to be used for agricultural purposes. So that's a given, and then it's not going to be developed in any ways, but there's still a lot of questions that still need to be addressed, and I'm sort of counting on the working group to come back with direction based upon those 15 responses that says, we think that this is the best way for us to proceed forward, is to do.
And from what I gathered from what Karen said, maybe you remember too, is they have to pick one or the other before they go out for the RFPs.
Right, because you wouldn't want to, I mean, then it's too vague, right? Because what are you doing? You're going to have people come in and say, okay, I'm going to give you X to lease or Y to sell. It doesn't really work. It really, they need to pick one lane, if you will, and then go with that. So.
Do we have a date when we expect them to have made a decision?
That's a
Good question, yeah.
Mark, the end of March, right?
Yeah, I think they have to, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Fair question, and, yeah, we're really, and again, I hope that they'll have something, but, you know, again, I'm just following the board's
The last
direction.
meeting from the board to put articles on is Monday, right?
Yeah, that is,
So,
this is the
there's your
place.
date.
Well, they could always come up with another, select board could on the 30th have another meeting, and couldn't they?
In
It
theory.
depends when it
Yeah,
closes,
in
when the
theory,
warrant
in
closes.
theory.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but they can reopen
Yeah,
it.
they could. I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
but you're really you're really getting tight on this.
Oh,
and,
yeah,
you know,
oh, yeah,
So I
yeah.
think it's, you know, you're not wrong, Brian, but, so. But,
Yeah.
I took it from what Karen said, that they have both lease options and buy options in their RFIs that are viable, but that I think they hope before the next meeting to decide
Which
direction to go.
Fair enough.
So I think they'll
Okay.
have,
Something.
yeah, I think that's their intent.
Right.
Okay, cool, thanks.
It was also asked that we do a placeholder for the Shade Tree Committee. They're looking for some sort of bylaw about tree removal. So I'm not sure what exactly it's going to look like. I think I say it's relatively modest in nature as it relates to public land and removing trees. I don't know. I've been just, you know, all this is here. I can't really give you much information, so on
Sometimes
Monday
they
we'll
fall
have
down.
provide. I'm going to skip 27 for the time being.
Yeah.
If you don't mind. If
For the
that's okay,
moment.
Mr. Chair, we'll come back to that in the end. So,
Yeah.
coming back to it, Fred. Coming back to it. So, we talked earlier about the article, a placeholder article for funding of collective bargaining agreements. again, we have funding set aside in the operating budget for this, not under each department, but in different areas that we hope that we'll be able to come back, at least, if not all the unions, hopefully some of them, but it's still a process, and there's no guarantees on that. But we get 4 union agreements, all of which are end at the end of this fiscal year, so we have our work cut out for us there. The next item, 29, is to authorize departure from Neshoba Associated Boards of Health. As I mentioned to you, our new health, I should say director, I don't know, sometimes I think the agent might get offended by that, so I'll use the right title, but we, if you remember, we committed to Neshoba Boards of Health 2 years. Last year around this time, for them to keep us on for FY24. They said, well, you have to stay on for FY25 as well, so there's money in the budget for Neshoba services, as well as a director of public health. I think I'm meeting tomorrow with the new director of public health and our point person from Neshoba Boards of Health, which is Jim Gareffi, and starting to work through with them how we're going to make this relationship work over the next year and 4 months. So, and you know, how we can support one another and what this is going to look like. It's a sort of new territory for us. You know, I think we want to work cooperatively with the Neshoba Boards of Health. They've been, I've enjoyed partnering with them. I've worked with them in other communities where I've worked. But this is what the Board of Health wants to do, and this is what we're going to move forward and execute. So, but we need to officially have something in here that we can point to say, we're with you next year, but after that, we plan to move on.
So my big thing with this is making sure that we have backup agreements with other communities. Something happens to this new health director. We can't go back and plead with Neshoba after FY26 is over.
Yes, I think I've done enough groveling already. Ask Matt Wason.
They basically have a year and 4 months to come up with some plan to back up our health.
And actually, that was one of the first conversations that I had with our new director of health, was to begin to start developing those relationships with Acton and Westford and trying to see what's out there, such that, I mean, don't forget too, you're talking about just simple things like somebody goes on vacation for a week. You know, what's the backup look like? We need to, part of what we need to do is to develop what that backup plan looks like. So I concur wholeheartedly, and that was probably, other than welcome to town, I think that was one of the first conversations that we had, because it's something he's going to have to work on, and not just exclusively rely on the show, over the course of the next year. It's about developing those relationships and developing a plan. So that's certainly something I'd like to see.
Yeah, welcome on board. What's your plan if you get hit by a bus?
Right.
Well, it's no different than our building department. They have the alternates, and Roland for many years was an alternate at another town.
Yeah.
So he'd fill in over there when that person went on vacation. So, and the same thing would happen when they were on vacation.
Yeah.
I would think it should be relatively easy because the other towns are in the same boat. They need the same working relations, so it's just developing.
But I will say, just from a personal perspective, having worked in smaller communities, how hard it is when you have these departments of one. Because it isn't easy to have. I mean, it's one thing to say a Board of Health, you're doing inspections, you're doing the same state inspection, at one restaurant in one town as you would the next. But when you're talking about things like an assessor and they don't know the town, or or treasurer collector, and you just have one, that's why these assistants are so important, to be able to fill in for whatever reason, and anything might come up. So we're fortunate here that we're a large enough community, we've got the support of the Finance Committee and Select Board to have some of those backups. So it's really important.
Septic system inspections with all the developers. I mean, you bring that to a halt, waiting for 6 months to hire a new one. It'd be held to pay.
It's no joke, and it was a hard position to fill, too. So Point Taken, yeah. So, Anyway, that's that. Item 30 is, town planner reached out to me, we're gonna actually delete that. We are not updating the FEMA maps, which I'm glad for. It's apparently gonna look at that for next year, so we can remove that. Which is great. Next two items are citizen petition articles. The first is to revise our cannabis bylaws to require charcoal air filters for, I believe, I'd have to look at it again, but basically this is something where I think it would be in both the grow sites as well as the retail sites as well. I believe that that's the case. I may be, we'll get it out. The citizen petitions, people can, and this one, I think, it did not, go through town council and try to, we have to basically, once we have 10 certified signatures, we have to place that on the warrant as it's written. So, different communities do this in different ways. This is I think, I don't remember seeing a lot of citizen petitions here, but this one, since my time here in Littleton, but again, this is what we'll have to put on, and we'll have to have a conversation about it. Next one just came in last week, another citizen petition to amend town bylaws regarding meeting posting requirements. So, as I understand it, the request here is that if you were going to be talking about a project here at the Finance Committee, you'd have to then say, I'll post it as a public hearing, meaning that if there was anybody in the public, which tonight we don't have anybody, who wanted to come and speak to something, that they'd have the right to do that. So, no financial implications, but something to keep in mind. So I don't think you guys, I think the Finance Committee would be respectively voting on this, but that's,
It's a citizen's petition, but you have it highlighted blue.
Meaning that it's new since the last select board meeting, so it just came in last week.
Okay, all right.
So when the select board sees this, to know that they didn't vote on it, basically.
Gotcha.
So so just as an example, when we were talking a minute ago about Indian Hill, that would have to have been marked as a...
You'd probably say, like, I'm guessing we'd have to post it, some sort of blanket public hearing thing, so I think it basically, as the chair, Steve would have the right to, this meeting is a Finance Committee meeting.
Right.
If you, you don't have there's no public input on this meeting, I don't think, is there?
Yeah, there is.
Okay, that's fine. So even with the public input, but the public input should only be coming in for things that aren't otherwise on the agenda. And so what this would say is that if it was a public hearing, that the public could ask any question and seek information on any of the project-based articles that are on there, so.
Gosh, I wonder where this citizen's petition came from.
Was that?
A citizen.
Yeah.
That's there, but again, it would be something, I think typically there's no financial implications, but just to make you aware of that.
That's what we talked about.
That being there. So, next piece, 33. This may be, this is a zoning bylaw, but basically it's to limit the number of dispensaries and I think grow facilities specifically. I think that the planning board's working on, so we'll be seeing that probably. This will be a zoning amendment. Then 34 is the MBTA.
Well, wait, hold on.
Okay.
Hold on.
Okay. Yeah.
So right now we have, well, it doesn't apply. Oh, never mind, it's not finance, I'm not going to touch it.
Okay. So that, again, that's coming from the planning board. Number 34 is MBTA's zoning bylaw, I believe, tomorrow night.
Yes, tomorrow night.
So I think, have you guys posted as a?
We haven't posted. No.
All right, but, so they're gonna have an update, and we're gonna be talking about, I think there's trying to engage into a conversation with some of the existing property owners in the Taylor Street area see what they have to say, and hopefully we'll have some sort of consensus from that as to how we want to move forward. I believe we're going to have our consultant there at that meeting as well and give us an update. So this failed, as you may recollect, in the fall. So we're going to still continue to push for this. What we've seen on our end, the town of Milton has been sued by the Attorney General's office. The state's taking this very seriously.
Did we get any kind of response to the letter we sent in? Even like a thank you for your inquiry?
I don't think, it's a good question, Jerry. I don't think we ever have gotten anything back, but I think that we kind of read between the lines, which is to say, we're not going to get any special treatment here. There's 171 communities, and if you start making exceptions for a few of them, then we're going to run into a lot of, it just creates chaos for the state. So the state's been trying to push this, and I went to an event this past fall for one of our MassWorks grants, and the governor was there. She's like, one of her highest priorities is housing, 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 and so we have to understand that that's a goal for the governor, and I think the state overall. And so where municipalities then fit in within that, we have to be considerate of this push, because they're looking for partners, and it's something that hopefully we can kind of come to terms with, because I think we're supposed to have either have a vote at this annual town meeting or by the next fall at our special. So clock's ticking for us.
I just would have thought, based on that, they would have sent out a no right away, and at least then that would be something that
and
deal with and say, okay.
Yeah, but nothing formal.
Nothing.
But I think we can.
I think you can assume it's no.
Yeah.
If this doesn't pass, that's really bad for us, just in terms of the grants and stuff.
And we do technically have another bite at the apple in the fall, but at the same time we know we have to kind of come to terms with this, and
What would be the benefit for waiting until the fall, if any?
I'm probably the wrong person. I think that's probably a question better suited to the planning board. I don't know. I mean, other than urgency, other than that, we'd say, all right, well, this is the last time. So I think continuing the dialogue, Jenna, and talking and hearing what people have concerns about, and trying to find a way. This isn't a 2/3 vote. This is only a majority vote, because when they made the legislation, that's how they allowed for. But we still need to get that 50% plus, so to be able to do it. So hopefully have this conversation tomorrow night, see what that looks like.
Sure.
And
Did any of you see the Cabot and Forbes presentation to the planning board? If you haven't, you should go take a look at that.
Okay.
It's,
When was
I
that?
think it was the 7th, the meeting of the 7th, I think it was.
Just recently.
It was either the
was their last
3/7 or the meeting before that.
Okay.
And it's, I forget whether, I think it's towards the end of the meeting. But the CEO of Cabot and Forbes came in and made a presentation on what his company would propose for, I think it's called the Connors property. The property that was turned down the last time, plus the rest of that parcel.
Yeah, it's 245.
I'm sorry, 245.
245.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but this is a real company. They do huge projects, and they have, I think it was two MBTA projects underway now.
They want to do this project?
Yeah.
Okay.
And buying the land.
Because, the last meeting it's just a rezoning, but there's nobody interested in it at this time, so this is a real, okay.
Yeah, they've come forward since then. And
If you go in tomorrow night, you might want to look at this before.
Yeah, I will do that.
Just to get a flavor for somebody that's in that business making a proposal as to what they could do for the town. And it's,
So
you make your own judgment. But I think-
we're not posted for tomorrow night, but certainly we're welcome to attend as citizens of the town, so.
Right. And that is a significant change, for someone to actually, to have a developer that's looking at it and actually, I don't know what the relationship is between them and the current owners, or whether or not it's been sold, but it's clear that
I have no
they
idea.
are, they want to move forward with this. And, Jerry, you're right. I mean, at the last town meeting, we couldn't say it. We just said, okay, well, we just want to rezone this, and now you're having a developer coming in and saying, we'd like to rezone it to be compliant with MBTA communities for this specific
Do this
purpose,
with
and then roughly speaking, what this plan might look like. It's still a high level at this point, but, it's certainly more concrete than what we had last November 1st, so. Okay, so, let's see. 35. So this is, we just keep this here as a placeholder if we need to make any other transfers among our operating, FY24 operating budget. One thing, we had a meeting last week among the fire department. There's been spending on the salary side for that. We're going to try to figure out, we're waiting for them to do different year-end projections, so we determine whether or not we might be able to handle this through existing transfers, or whether we need to go to, whether we'd be saying to the fire department to come before you to ask for a reserve fund transfer. So, but that's just to flag it for you. Keeping right along here, 36 is a deposit to the Special Injury Leave Indemnity Fund. So the, back in, let's say, I think it was September, the select board voted to make a transfer of $155,000 from the Special Leave Indemnity Fund to cover the replacement costs for our fire chief who's out. And so this basically, this deposit would refund that amount and bring us back to the balance of $350. I would note, however, that the leave issue is still out there. Where we did, the select board did make an appointment for a new fire chief, but that fire chief will be technically under the term interim title until such point that we get final closure on our former fire chief's status. So that's what's going on there.
Is that a done deal at this point? Or is it still under
It's not a
negotiation?
done deal. It's basically the retirement papers have been submitted, and we're just sort of it's going to take time. So you're probably talking about another 9 months before we, at least until we get there.
At best case, yeah.
Yeah, best case
Okay.
scenario. Let's see. So the next piece is Article 37 is a withdrawal from capital stabilization for pay down of the Indian Hill purchase. So this was last February 15th, which is a special town meeting, $3.5 million to purchase Indian Hill, and this amount would pay the principal down on that loan. Number 38 is to amend the Oak Hill Stabilization Fund. These are funds that, this is the language, let me try to take a step. This is a complex one. It's a lot of fun, this one. So we had received funds from our cell tower on Oak Hill, and there was, I think we're just kind of taking that money in, and then it needed to be defined. DOR basically said it has to have its own fund. So we established the Oak Hill Stabilization Fund. When that was established, however, the uses of that fund were relatively limited, and what we've heard from the Conservation Commission is they want to expand it a little bit so that they can take monies from it and use that for specific projects. So fine, so we were basically adding like a word onto the existing article to allow for them to use projects. And then with that, it spins into the next piece, which is the transfer fund. Presuming you say yes to 38, then they would put a request forward for about $20,000 for them to have a specific project that they could be using this for, something more substantive in nature, like if they wanted to do remediation of Japanese knotweed or whatever it might be, that they have a steady funding source for that. So that's all that is, and I believe that's it for the articles. We'll go back to the one that I skipped, but just to get to the rest of these other. Steve also came up with some other housekeeping items. The select board needs to authorize the use of ARPA funds, so we have the $725,000 sewer betterment. That's what the town would owe on that, as well as another $280,000 for the school rooftop HVAC unit. So I think these should be just votes. Probably we should have, we can have the select board take arguably like the night of town meeting if we want to, or beforehand, so. You're looking at me coldly, what is that? Is that all right?
I thought it was just the select board.
Yeah, it's the select board, right. So we could do like the night of town meeting and make these votes complementary to everything else that's happening. Or we could wait till afterwards, depending, just, it may be the most cautious route to the next meeting.
Select board meeting.
Yeah, and I would say the next select board meeting on Monday night, they should,
On Monday night, yeah, they could.
especially the 7:25. I don't want that hanging out there.
That's fair enough, fair enough. Okay, well, and then it's all right
And
there,
then
so.
people change their mind and it comes up with a different use.
Well, look at this money here.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, no, you got to encumber
Okay,
it.
I will make a note of that, to put that on, so, okay. All right, and then, the next is the allocation, $10,000 contribution. Patriot Beverage provided $20,000 to the town. $10,000 would be going toward the 250th anniversary of Patriots Day, which is happening in FY25, and the other $10,000 is going to be put toward the building fund for the senior center. Steve and I were talking about this before. I think the select board had already talked about this, so this is really probably just a straight-on allocation from the gift fund. So
I would think so.
I think,
but
I don't
should
think we
run
need
it
to
past
do
somebody.
anything. Right. And the last item is reserve fund transfer for Nagog Orchard expenses. These were more of the maintenance expenses that they thought they might be coming back to the finance committee for a reserve fund transfer once they have some sort of scope within that. And in the interim, we're probably gearing up toward doing doing more of the maintenance, basic maintenance through DPW. But just to forewarn you that might be coming your way. So with that, after being accused of being a coward by Fred, I will return back to.
Oh, did you skip one?
Yeah, bring us back to 27, which is debt exclusion for the purchase of the Webster property. So just to make this was something I hadn't had originally in my list, but was reminded at the last select board meeting that that the select board wanted to put this back on. This would. From the earlier conversations we had about this, there was a discussion and a general thought that if the town were to move forward with this, that we would be pursuing a debt exclusion for this. And so to do that, we need to get clarity at this meeting because the town clerk, to put it on, this is a two-piece vote. So the first one would be, we'd need a two-thirds vote because at town meeting, and then a majority vote at the polls. So we would then, so two separate things, but they happen sort of in tandem. So there's a meeting tomorrow. I think Jim is going to be meeting with the Websters and some, I think a select board meeting, internal meeting at this point as to how they want to proceed forward. That conceptually, because it's a debt exclusion, and just as we had the question back in November, really, it's still a 2/3 vote, so really nothing has changed. As we understand, I think the original ask was 1.6 million, and I think they knocked the proponent, or the owners had knocked it down to 1.4 million, so materially, I don't know, and I haven't heard anything else, whether anything else has changed to present the town meeting. But as such, that there's still going to be a 2/3.
What happened to the buyer, though? I guess I'm just, there was supposedly a purchase and sale that was signed. How come they're not obligated to sell to them after we voted it down?
I think I would.
That threat that
This
was
is a great
hanging over our
question,
heads.
Jerry.
Yeah, it was
you.
this big emergency.
Sunday night would be a great time to talk about that.
Right, right, and we still have the outstanding question of the town's right of first refusal on this. So before town
I
meeting.
thought that's what that was, though.
Well,
No?
no, because it would be, they had it, but it was also technically deficient in terms of what they provided to us. So we basically had said to the owner that, you can't proceed, this isn't a legitimate right of first refusal,
So-
you need to be able to do it
Right
correctly.
after town meeting, it was the next select board meeting right after that. Select board received the letter from the Websters saying that they wanted to stop the clock on the right of first refusal. Town council looked at the letter and said it was deficient because it was missing basically one sentence that said how they were going to use the property. We are going to build 66 senior housing units. That's all it was missing. Select board, instead of saying, sorry, we don't care about our right of first refusal, town meeting said no. They sent it back to the website and said, it's deficient, correct it, and resubmit it. They haven't resubmitted it yet.
Oh, my goodness.
They also haven't gotten a new appraisal yet. So nothing about this purchase has changed. It's still $630,000 appraisal for a $1.4 million purchase price. The only thing the select board is asking is that the residents now kick in the money as extra tax, as an exclusion. So we had done the debt service calculation. I think they wanted it for 10 years.
Yeah, I
correct?
think that's right. Well, I mean, that's what we thought would be
Right.
appropriate.
So I redid that. If you remember, we did the calculation for the November 1st town meeting, which was prior to us setting the tax rate, prior to the new valuations, and came out to around $40-something. It is now close to $60 with the new tax rate and the new values in there, because it's another year. Things have changed. So it's $60 a year now. We still have, and I'm going to ask Ryan to, at the end of this, when we get to member updates, to talk about Shaker Lane, what's going on with that. If that's a full boat that we're talking about, and the number that's floating around here of that 60 million, you take out the 48% that the state is going to give the town back, it's still 30-something million dollars we're going to borrow, which is over $1,000 a year in extra taxes, because we're saying it's going to be a debt exclusion. So throw this on top of it, you think back on what we talked about before, how the select board wanted to increase the CPA from 1% to 3%. What are they doing? They're supposed to be watching out for the taxpayer in this town, and I don't think they're doing a very good job increasing this, increasing that, doing this, knowing what's coming down the pike. My opinion of this hasn't changed a bit. I am still going to vote no to this. I am opposed to this 100%. I open it up for discussion.
So what I don't understand, and I tend to agree with that, so far I see nothing to cause me to change my mind, but, listen, but I'm surprised that this didn't come out as a citizen's petition, because that's sort of what I thought would happen, because the town voted no. I don't know why the select board is putting this on.
Why would a citizen think it was still available? It was either going to be bought by us at town meeting, or it was being sold to the purchase and sale. I mean,
Exactly.
it wasn't available.
Nothing has changed.
That was the impression that we were left with.
I think, Ryan, so it's the way, and I'll ask Steve to correct me if I have miscategorized anything, but basically, at the meeting after the special town meeting, the chair at that point, Gary, had indicated that, a lot of people, it was obviously a fairly controversial matter, and, so basically had said that, he was still, open-minded to the thought, but that he felt that if it were to move forward, that it would have to be a debt exclusion and not just be purchased within the levy.
Sure.
So that's where we had kind of left it at that point, and it was resurrected at the last meeting as we were putting together our list of articles. And so, I think maybe the reason it didn't come forward as a citizen petition is because if people were basing it on that meeting after the November 1st special town meeting, that they may have been thinking, okay, well, the select board must be going to be putting something forward to this, and that appears to be what we're, at least what the board is committing to do. So.
Yeah, it just seems weird. I mean, at that town meeting, it was all emergency. Got to do it now,
Yeah.
which anytime someone says you got to order before midnight tonight, I get a little nervous.
No, you want 2 for 1 at that point. We know you.
No. But so it's just odd that the emergency disappeared, but I bet the emergency will reappear before May, whatever.
No, you're right, that's my feeling, is we were pressured into, we have to decide now where it's gonna be gone. I would love to buy the piece of property for $630,000. I don't wanna be tricked into paying more for it, or coerced into it, or whatever word you wanna use, which is how I feel.
I would agree, and I was against it. I can't remember ever being against something so strongly as I was when I heard about this article coming to town meeting, just because I think it sets a terrible precedent for the town to, and other people looking to sell large parcels of land now have, how much can I get out of the town? I'm all for. I'd be for buying it too if it was for the price that it doesn't exceed the estimate, but. I'm confused as to why this is back on, if we haven't received the amended letter from the owners, and, what was the other piece?
There's no new appraisal.
Yeah, no new appraisal. The only thing that's changed is now we're going to go outside the levy to fund it.
Right.
That's,
And we have now an expired P&S, to go back to your point, because it expires at the end of March. So there's actually nothing to base this sale on, because he has no offer in hand now, until we see another P&S signed.
do we know?
$630,000 is the appraised value.
I guess we can ask
Lower their price to $630,000.
Monday.
We can use CPC.
Done
I'm
deal.
all in favor.
What if there were a new appraisal and it came in at like 800,000? Could CPC reassign 800,000 to that number? Or is the six?
If the purchase
If
price
the
was
purchase
800.
price, you can't have a purchase price
Yeah.
higher than the appraisal and use CPC. If,
Right, but-
if,
Right, but I hear you saying that maybe we should have a new appraisal, and they haven't done that yet. So if the new appraisal came back in at 800,000, and they said, could we say, okay, we'll use CPC for the 800? We were gonna do 630 before.
The short answer to that is yes. I mean, if there's another valid.
well, they,
Okay.
If the purchase price
Basically-
Right, we
came
can't
down
pay
to
more
that.
than that.
Oh,
That's
no,
the
I
total
totally
price,
get
yeah.
that. I guess what I'm wondering is if a new appraisal came in higher, it's possible the Websters could say, we'll take the 800,000.
Correct.
Yeah, because
Absolutely.
We would love that.
They were
Right.
told they could get a new appraisal back originally
And
when they
they've
didn't
had
like that and they didn't want to.
Months,
Yeah.
6 months have gone by.
they haven't done it.
And is the expectation that there would be a new appraisal? Have they let someone down by not following through on that? I guess I'm just sort of wondering,
It's not up to them to get the appraisal, it's up to us.
and we would get it because we were
We are the
told,
purchaser.
here's a chance to buy something. Oh, that letter's deficient because it doesn't mention the 66 houses. Here's your letter back. Silence.
So,
Got it. Okay. All right. Well, it seems to me like that's not like in keeping with like being open and
Spirit of-
transparent
yeah.
and what's happening. So for that alone, I am now with perhaps the majority who say this is not worth purchasing. But that's just because it seems like there was this like groundswell of we gotta buy this land, and then just totally quiet. So what's going on? Sounds like nothing. At least nothing
I don't know.
nothing
that we see.
we haven't seen yet, yes. Maybe there's more information coming Monday night.
But
And
again,
Monday, is that the deadline? Is Monday night the deadline for the?
They should be guiding and saying, okay, we want this article or not want the article in. Yeah, including as well as direction on, has to be also a vote on whether or not it's up to the select board to add the debt exclusion. It has to be a vote on that as well.
So it's a majority of the board to put an article on the warrant, it's a supermajority to make it an exclusion, I believe, so.
Sounds
And
right.
again-
4 out of 5 of them have to vote to make it a debt exclusion.
Really?
I believe that's the case.
Okay.
Well, and again, last time the article was coming shortly before town meeting, and it was a rush to approve it, and now here we are being presented with it again, right at the end, whereas.
Doesn't it feel important when we do it this way?
So on Monday, I mean, it's the select board's article to put on or not, but presumably, I mean, Monday's a joint meeting,
Correct.
so presumably they will ask us, and if we reprise the same situation of us not anticipating anyone's vote, but if we all vote no and.
I think we should all do this, and at the same time.
It's funny, because I walked into Ryan's office tonight and doing.
Yeah.
All right, there you go. It's a universal sign.
Well, but I mean, last time, anything we wanted, there wasn't time to get it. There wasn't time to get new appraisal. There was barely time to get the
Right.
amended purchase and sale without all the errors. And I just feel like it's kind of back to that same spot again.
Nothing has changed. So they can vote to put it on the warrant as an exclusion and set up the ballot and everything.
Do we
So the
still recommend
options-
on a debt exclusion, or is that,
Oh, yeah.
okay.
You're just going to get up and say, same, same as last time.
Could they push it to the fall?
I don't know.
Because there's two separate things, because there's the debt exclusion could theoretically go to the fall. And, I mean, it also depends upon, too, how much, what the seller's planning, too.
Right,
So
it just
I-
seems to me that the
Seller.
sellers haven't acted, we haven't acted on our behalf, and now we're gonna potentially try to cram all this in and.
The seller wants to wait to November, then it's certainly within their right, and they can make the suggestion to the select board, we don't want this on there. What are you
The
doing?
clock hasn't started, right, until we get their
The
letter?
clock, yeah,
Yeah.
the clock, the clock's been, because we've said it's been deficient, that no clock has become.
Right.
Right.
Right. I think the difference for town meeting this time is, last time there was the feeling, and we can argue whether it was justified or not, but the feeling of like that we presented our side, just at the end. Well, this time we have the new policy, or go back to the old policy, we're gonna give the state of the town finance at the beginning, and then this article will show up whenever it shows up, and at that point, no one can say, well, you're just targeting this one article. It is, but the numbers are what they are.
Exactly.
And instead, is Tim Goddard going to go ahead and do a summation, or someone from our board is going to say, tonight you're going to be asked to vote on these 2 zoning articles, the
I
funding?
tend to at least cover the financial articles.
Yeah, okay.
Just a brief bullet
Yeah,
on each one.
right. So this is how much you can spend tonight, folks.
Just
Tim
to-
typically will do something like that as well, but Steve will be speaking one of the ones that are financial.
Yeah, great, okay,
So
good.
both really, too. At least is what should happen.
with no opinion given up front about this article until the article
Oh,
comes.
we know your opinion the whole time. We know, Steve.
So are we kind of in agreement? Are we 7-0 here?
I'm pretty comfortable with
I
that.
am, I'm right where I was.
And I like conservation land.
I think we all do.
Yeah, we all do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Again,
they
if the
do.
purchase price was $630, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
If the purchase
Or if
price,
you got an appraisal for 1.4, that's fine.
As
Great.
long as we can use CPC
Yeah.
yeah,
and where.
And there
we've
could be
been-
other land that comes up that
Right.
we have CPC money for that we can buy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, we're not setting a precedent.
right.
That's the big thing.
About,
Oh, the precedent. Oof.
it's dangerous.
Right,
It is
because
dangerous.
it could put us in a
It
corner
is.
of never being able to use CPC for that.
Right, and you heard conservation get up there at town meeting when they were advocating for the article. Here's this last purchase we did, it was this much per acre. Here's this, it was this much per acre. We apply those same things to this, it's the 1.4, we're good. Case closed. That was their argument. They were going after past purchases, which had valid appraisals to support that.
Right,
This didn't.
right,
They
Yeah.
didn't mention that piece.
right.
So, I don't know. I will give them the option, because they have to decide, like you said, Monday night, whether it's an exclusion. There's two ways you can handle it. You can handle this as a debt exclusion and place debt for 10 years, in which case the town is paying more than the 1.4 million because of all the interest costs for 10 years. Or it's a one and done, like we used to do with capital purchases. It's capital exclusion. One and done, 1.4 million, 1 year on the tax rate. It's their choice. I'll have the numbers ready for them.
I think that's gonna make
1
that,
year on the
that'll
tax
be,
rate?
that'll be sticker shock.
So wait, when you, what, if it is the capital with the one and done, what you're saying is that the average taxpayer's
Tax bill
whatever
to support
is
the
$6
one-
grand, this next 1 year, it'll be 660? It's gonna go up by 10%? I mean, I guess what I'm wondering is, because all of
No,
us
so
have,
on the debt,
yes, yeah,
on the debt, I already said that on the average house, which
Yep.
is for something,
About that, yeah.
is $60.
$60,
Over
okay.
10 years.
Over 10 years.
$60 a
Each
year
year.
for
Each
10,
year
yep,
is
so
up.
$600. If you have an average house, if you've got a super nice house, then it's gonna be more money, it's gonna be $120 a year.
Because of your assessed value in your house, if it's more than that, you're gonna pay more than that.
Yep, okay, fair enough,
The one and done is, we're gonna raise 1.4 million in a single year,
yes.
and I'll come up with that number and say, this is what you would add to the tax bills if it was one and done.
Yeah, great, okay,
That's it.
yeah.
That way
I think
the
it'd be
town's
really
not
helpful.
paying more.
Yeah, I think it'd be helpful for taxpayers who come to town meeting to know, my house is assessed at X amount of money, and then Steve Venuti will tell me, if you want the Webster property, and you're gonna buy it over 10 years, or actually, we'll know by that point. You'll be able to say, this is what it's gonna cost you, $500,000 house owner.
Yep.
Great, I love that.
And by the way, here are all the other things that will also be, you know, adding to your tax bill, so it's not in a vacuum.
Like the school.
Right,
Yes.
right.
Oh, kids still have to go to school if we buy the property?
To me, the more important issue is setting a precedent going forward. Because who in their right mind would sell property to the town at the assessed value if they knew all they had to do was
Get a friendly
find
contractor to do
good,
E&S.
a good offer
Right.
and
We got someone's name
the
right here on
town
this one.
will pay 2.2 times the appraised value.
Right,
So going forward, you're setting a dangerous precedent.
Right.
That's the piece that really
Well,
bothers
it's
me.
just setting up for a lot of whining when people say, why can't I do it? Yeah. Got
If
it.
I was selling my 5 acres, you wouldn't get it for appraised value if this kind of thing goes through, because the precedent has been set.
Yeah, what people have to understand is that buying this land could cause us to buy less land in the future.
I'm just thinking, the Gary, I don't know his last name, Gary's farm stand, he just passed away. How long before that land comes out for sale? I'd rather have that property and put some fields there if we can, than this property where you can't do anything.
Right. But as far as the precedent, what you're saying is that the FinCom and the select board would be saying to the town, listen, we're gonna do it this way, this is how we're planning on doing it. If you want it, we need 2/3, and then we're gonna go to the polls and we're gonna vote again. That's the precedent that you're setting, is the policy
No, you're
to do
paying
it.
more for
No,
it.
no, no.
That's the precedent of paying
Yeah.
2 times or more
times the
than
appraisal.
the appraised value.
'Cause it's-
That's the precedent you're setting. Going to an override is just a mechanism.
To
Then Why are
pay.
why are we letting the Websters ask at all?
Well, that's my,
Question.
I mean,
that's
maybe.
my question is, what's
Yeah.
the motivation to put this back on the warrant if we haven't received anything from them?
Not even so much that, just why are we selling it to them at all? Like, why,
No, the buying.
Why are we
Buying it.
buying it?
why, I'm sorry, that's what I meant to say. Why are they here and not Gary's Farm Stand? I mean, we're gonna see Gary's Farm Stand comes up and it was appraised at, I don't know, $1 million, but he wants 6, his estate wants 4 million, and now we're gonna do another one of these votes again?
That's the precedent.
That's the
thing.
precedent.
That's the precedent.
Right.
And there's
And
also,
so-
right, but you would need to
That's the
convince the
danger.
select board to put it on the warrant, or the FinCom to put it on, that's the precedent that's being set, is to convince the town leadership, this is the way we want to do it.
Well, no, I'm trying not, no, right now, if the purchase price is equal or less than the assessment, then we can do CPC.
I get that.
Right, but if so the precedent is, we will buy land in a way that doesn't let us use CPC,
Oh,
which is
yep,
our funding mechanism, really. So that's the bad precedent.
right.
Well, that you could have a piece of land, my husband's family had a piece of land in Shirley that was, 50 acres. It wasn't valuable, developable, to develop because it didn't have a lot of road frontage and whatever, but it was land that the town wanted. I think they ended up donating it, but because the appraised value was so low, it was more feasible. But that's what's never going to happen, is someone whose appraised value of their land is not necessarily worth building is still going to want that money for it, and the town will buy it because we want the open land. So
We have
yeah.
never purchased a property that was over the appraised value.
And the sticking point is that they're saying the appraised values, it's junk because of the road issues and all that. But that
Exactly.
argument needs to be made to a professional appraiser who will say, you're right, and I'm going to change my appraisal to reflect that, here's the new number.
Right.
But it's not for
Which they
us to
haven't
say
done.
it's junk. And you're
Right.
saying,
So, and that was some of the select board's argument,
Uh-huh.
is that the appraisal was junk.
right,
But I would argue that the purchase and sale might be junk.
Exactly.
sure, right, yeah.
So,
Right,
No, we're- yeah.
okay.
yeah. Yeah, you don't want to set a bad precedent, for sure.
Any,
That concludes.
that's
my
it for that?
Yeah.
Okay. I send around the treasurer's cash report. Anybody have any questions on that? At all? I sent around last week.
It was in the email.
It was with all the minutes.
In the email.
Okay, yeah.
So it's part of the investment policy for
Yeah.
the town.
Yep.
We should get it every couple of years. I have no problems with it. We have no problems, I'll take a motion to accept the treasurer's report. I don't know if we need to vote, but
I think it's better if we
We do.
don't vote, right, Fred? We shouldn't vote.
it's setting a precedent.
You know, Fred and I are both not sure if we've seen the document, which is why I'm suggesting we not
Oh,
vote.
okay.
It's, no, I'm looking now, it was sent on March 12th at 4:51 PM.
March 12th. Correct, telling us
All right,
tonight.
so we have it, we want to
Yes,
take a
yeah,
vote,
it's
but
on
we
that
have it.
I'm so glad.
Okay.
We need to be very-
Member update? Would you like to fill us in on Shaker Lane?
Okay. Well, not technically a member, but I'd be happy to be
Well,
out there.
I passed my Shaker Lane ship to you.
So the town has hired an owner's project manager, which is Turner, Townsend, and Heary. They are helping us guide us as we move forward and hire a designer. So we just got, we went out for bid for designers, and we were hoping for a good number of proposals, but we only received 2. So the next question that came before us is, okay, you've only received 2 proposals, MSBA would like 3. So we took a look at this, we discussed it among our committee last Thursday, I think it was. And we made a determination with the guidance of the OPM that both of the proposals were sound, and we're willing to move forward with these 2 proposals. What happens next is it goes to the MSBA meeting. We ask them 2 things, which is, please, we know we don't have more than 3, but we ask that you take these 2 into consideration. And the other guidance we received from the committee was that we'd like to interview them, because this is going to be a long-term partner with us, and we'd like to have that opportunity to do that. Generally speaking, MSBA, upon the request of the community, will help facilitate that and kind of see where things go from there. But we've got 2 firms with lots of experience, and we're optimistic that we'll be able to partner up with one of them. But we have to wait for the MSBA to basically go through their review and tell us which one. It's a very where they're providing what, 48%? Is it?
They're giving us 48 now.
48%. They have a lot of they kind of run this project. In fact, just to give people a flavor of this, so for me to even attend the designer selection procedures, they sent an 11-page document that I then have to read and sign just to be able to attend. I didn't even, so I say I'm on camera, so I love the MSBA.
You studied it. You
We
studied
don't know
it.
where that was going.
Take care of this, I send this back to them, and do whatever is requested of me.
That's right.
For the MSBA, but we're making progress, and again, the goal is to find a design firm that we can partner up with. And again, the big question for this project is, are we looking to rehabilitate or replace? And
If replace where?
replace where? That's a good question. That's right, Brian.
So as part of their proposals, they sent little, like, schematics of renovation or construction. And I know it's just very preliminary, it's just their initial thoughts, but even the renovation included a lot of new construction. So they kept a piece of the building, but they built a wing here, and they built an attachment here, and they built the second floor there. So there's a lot, in either way, they're both thinking that renovation is gonna equal a lot of construction. That was my takeaway from just seeing that very briefly.
When do you think you'll know whether it's going to be rehab or a new building and where it'll be located?
Part of that process is going to be engaging with the community, Jerry, so it doesn't just happen, at the firm. They're going to want to get the community's perspective, like what works. I think they actually even talked to some of the students, too, what works here, what doesn't work. It's a really inclusive process for them to come back to the committee with recommendations from it. So that's still a while off. So.
And going back to the timeline that they presented to us, we're looking probably the November 2025 special town meeting to vote the debt. So it's going to be here before we know it.
Right. I sure hope it ends up as the campus plan. I think that makes the most, but anyway, we'll see. Blah, blah, blah.
Any other updates, Ryan? I don't want to keep you here.
No,
That's fine.
I think we get the warrant's taking up a lot of our time now, and just trying to plan ahead for that. And it looks like the 25th again is going to be a big meeting for us. So we can talk about it if you want to post for that for FINCOM, but it will be a joint meeting, and
Yeah, I'll just let Diane know, and she'll.
Yeah. You can just add on to it. Okay. Yeah, but nothing else of note.
Thank you, by the way, for that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks,
Very
really good
good.
presentations.
You guys have any updates or anything? Anybody?
Nothing that's new.
I'd ask the public, but.
Nobody's here?
Then we have minutes. We have a bunch of minutes. We have Marilyn's minutes
Yep.
from the January 30th. We can start with that. Anybody have any? You didn't see them.
No, I did.
Oh, okay.
I did. Yeah, I did.
Do you have a motion?
Move we accept the minutes of 30th.
Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
And we have 3 sets of joint minutes that we're piggybacking on with the select board for our joint meetings. First one is January 23rd.
I've read it, it looks good. I move we approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you. Leave me hanging here.
Hi.
Aye.
I wasn't there, so I just not vote. I know that I wasn't there on the 23rd.
I think you can vote, but you can abstain if you want. January 29th.
I was there for that one.
I read it, it looks good. I move we approve.
Second?
I'll second.
Beautiful. Moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
And February 3rd.
I read it, looks good. I move we approve.
Second? Anybody?
I'll second.
Terry? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Next meeting is Monday night, joint meeting with the select board. Planning board
6:30?
meeting is tomorrow night, in case anybody wants to attend to hear what's going on there. We are not posted for that.
So you said Mondays at 6:30.
6:30, correct?
6:30, yeah, so we may probably just get right into this, I guess, then.
It was at-
Not 6:30 or 6:35,
At the library?
the library downstairs.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Is anyone moving to close the meeting?
Oh, that's a
Oh,
good
yeah,
point.
Motion closed.
Motion.
Adjourn, second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.